before we begin, I hope you've had a wonderful small business week. Again, I want to thank Jackie, Cassie, and Joy, and the rest of the small business division, because I don't know of another city who does so much for entrepreneurs. So let's give them a quick round of applause, because this is really tremendous how they support all of you and us and everything else. So terrific. So we have a wonderful panel here today. I'm going to start with letting the panelists introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Toni, who I see first in my little bubble boxes here. So Toni, please take it away.
Hey, Chris, nice to meet you. Nice to be here. I am so excited to be here today because I honestly and truly believe that there has never been a better time to be a small business, to be a small entrepreneur, just because of all the tools that are at our fingertips that we can, reach our customers quicker and faster. I am a digital course creator and a social media strategist, specifically around YouTube. I do manage my daughter's YouTube channel I have for the last 5 years. It's called Raven Elyse TV. And through managing her channel, I've learned a lot about social media marketing, and scaling in that space. And I'm excited to talk about e-commerce with you guys today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Marsha?
Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
I'm definitely excited to be here. I'm Marsha. I am the founder of Cater to Mom, which is a monthly postpartum subscription box for new and seasoned moms. I started my journey 2 years ago, just out of just the old frustration of just feeling like my needs weren't met postpartum. So with that, I launched my business, Cater to Mom. We've been growing significantly, far bigger than we even expected, just over on the e-commerce pathway. So it's gone bigger. Now we're doing international shipping. So I definitely have learned just from trial and error, definitely with e-commerce. So I'm open to any questions you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Jane.
Hi, everyone. I apologize. I'm sitting outside of 101 by Tea House. This is a restaurant here in Austin. It's an Asian-owned restaurant, and I'm just kind of hanging out here for the morning. I run a Taste of Koko, which is an Austin-based food and travel blog. I launched this in 2010, featuring the hottest restaurants and things to do in Austin. I've been doing it full-time since about 2015. So in the last 6 years, I worked with over 300 brands on advertising and influencer marketing campaigns. So brands in almost every vertical: travel, CPG, grocery, home, lifestyle, tech, pretty much a lot of brands in the big spaces. And I launched my direct-to-consumer product about a year and a half ago called Coco's Guide to Austin. It's a little pocket-sized yellow guidebook that's sold in 40 locations in Austin, including the Austin airport, also on Amazon. So that's a little bit of my e-commerce piece. Before that, I also launched a t-shirt line I'm no longer actively doing, but I did do that on Shopify. So I do have a little experience with e-commerce, but I think as a whole, Taste of Koko is pretty much an e-commerce brand because I am promoting local and national brands.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, all of you. Wonderful to meet all of you and see all of you. So first, let's just get everybody orchestrated here. When we talk e-commerce, we're talking about your website, Etsy, Shopify, selling on social, all of that stuff. So, if you think that, we're only talking about selling on your website, I just want to make sure that we're going to try to cover just about everything in this next hour or so. Please put questions in the chat. I will be monitoring them. And the first question I have for everybody is, what do you think is the 1-2 things that all small businesses need to know about selling online? Toni?
I think that you need to keep in mind that you need to treat your online business as if it were any other brick and mortar business. You need to put as much effort into your online business as you would put into a brick and mortar business. And that involves planning, that involves reaching your customers, marketing, You know, I think lots of times people believe that when they have something online, that it's online and people are just going to find them. So really, I've made that mistake. You know, being aware of SEO and marketing and how you can reach your customers from your online space.
Anybody else want to add to that, or?
I can jump in on this because I think a lot of the questions I get is, oh, well, how did you know you could do all this? How was your book such a success from the very beginning? Like, how did you do, you know, book party and charge tickets for it and still have 200 people come? And I think a lot of it is, I've been working on my brand for 10 years, and I think a lot of people didn't see like everything that was happening on the back end. And I had a very established platform that was already ready to go to be able to launch into other things. And that's what I kind of tell people who, I think it's so easy if you're an entrepreneur or small business owner, get stuck in your head and feel like I need to make it perfect when I launch. But I think a lot of it is like amping up to it. Is you can start your personal brand as early as tomorrow, despite what you might do in a year. And I think it's a lot of it is putting in that groundwork, and knowing that things just take time and it's not an overnight success. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, you were an overnight success. How did you get all of this? And I'm like, no, it was 10 years in the making.
Excellent. Marsha, did you have a point you want to add?
I agree with even just Toni is definitely just a learning process, even with the customer experience. When I started out, you know, I had set up my website on Shopify, but again, our business was new. No one knew who I was or what Cater to Mom was about. So I had to focus on the marketing aspect, and that included getting on Facebook and Instagram and kind of just sharing the experience with people so people would know like, hey, this is something that I'm selling with Cater to Mom. This is for moms. And just overall, it definitely took time, took several months until it was people started noticing and seeing the boxes. And I think one of the biggest contributors definitely with Cater to Mom was the word of mouth. More people started talking about it. So definitely important with customer experience.
Excellent. So let's go on that, because I think that's one of the questions I get in my marketing class a lot is how do we get people to our e-commerce shops wherever they happen to be? So what do you guys do to kind of grow the traffic and get the customers to find you?
I would say I initially started out on Instagram, and I'm not going to tell my age, but I'm a little bit older. So that was all new to me. So it was kind of like, oh my gosh, like where do I begin? And I started talking to just people that were a little younger than me to say, okay, what do I need to do to make the introduction? And from there, it was kind of like, okay, you know, I got the swing of things. But I think that was initially what I started, was doing Facebook ads and posting more on Instagram so people would get to know who I was before just kind of like initially launching and showing more of the product itself. So just, I guess, building those customer, not relations, but personal relationships with people.
Okay.
I also utilize my social following. That was there when I launched, you know, the t-shirt line and then the book. And then I know Toni had mentioned SEO. I think that's also been, I know it's very daunting, and things like that just take a lot of time. I think usually it takes Google 8 to 9 months to index a page. But my website, tasteofkoko.com, probably before lockdown, right now it's still hitting about 100,000 views a month, but before lockdown it's hitting about 150,000 unique hits a month. And so that's all traffic that's there. And so when you go to my website, you see this little yellow banner that says, and you can buy my book on Amazon. And so that's just redirecting the traffic to the sales page.
Go ahead, Toni.
Well, like Jane said, I think it's important to utilize whatever audience you have currently, wherever that is. I mean, if you have a mailing list, use that. If you're on social media, use that. Our most recent foray into e-commerce was selling some merch for the Raven Elyse channel. And of course, she already had her audience. So that's where we went first, to let people know who were following her on the different social media platforms that we were going to be launching this product, where they could find it. You know, she hadn't, prior to this, had a website or anywhere where, besides social media, where people could go to interact with her or to see products. So just letting whatever audience, you know, if you're super small and you don't even have a mailing list, call up your friends, call up your family, let them know that you're going to be launching this product, and where they'll be able to find it.
Excellent. And when it comes to, you know, it's a crowded world out there, right? And because of the pandemic, we're all online now, almost 24/7. So how do you show up as a small brand or a local brand in this very crowded, very busy world that we're in right now?
There's a quote that I read a couple of months, and I apologize that I'm eating. I'm like determined to actually eat lunch today. The quote was, "You can escape competition by remaining authentic." And I think that kind of ties my brand as a whole when I read this quote a couple months ago, because with Taste of Koko, I launched this to help promote local businesses and brands in Austin by telling people where to eat and things to do. And so I think that has, because I remain authentic to my voice, and I have my own way of storytelling through my voice, but also through photography, through videography, that's how I've been able to set myself apart from, you know, let's say other influencers, other bloggers, or even just other media outlets in town. And I've been very much the face of my brand, which is, you know, there's pros and cons to that, because I don't really get days off or hours off really. But because of that, people have an established trust on the things that I'm saying that I'm eating and things that I'm doing.
Excellent. Toni, do you have anything to add to that or no?
I'm pretty much gonna ditto what Jane said. Being authentic, you're going to attract the people that are for you. The more authentic you are, you're gonna attract that perfect customer to your product or service. So be authentic, you know, perhaps if it's appropriate, share a more personal side of yourself to make that connection.
Okay. And we had a couple questions in the chat. Somebody asked, how much do you set aside for ads when you're trying to drive traffic to your site? You guys have any thoughts or metrics on that?
I honestly think it varies, just because initially you're not sure of what ad is going to kind of trigger more leads. I actually started out started out small, anywhere from like $10 today. And it was kind of just, and I was doing A and B. So I set out like maybe 5 ads to see which ones people were looking at. And then once I kind of narrowed down the ads that were attracting more customers, and I started increasing the amount. So of course now we're a little bit bigger. So we're up to like maybe $150 to $100, just varies. But yeah, I would start out small just to do the A and B format, just kind of get an idea of what are catching people's attention.
Excellent. Yeah, the one thing I would add to that we talked about in the marketing class is one of my favorite clients always says that marketing is Latin for just try new stuff. So, you know, when it comes to your advertising, you should just try, as Marsha said, the A/B testing of ads. And one of the things is never start with a blank piece of paper. Look at what other great brands are doing. Excellent. So one of the things that, you know, I'm kind of seeing and hearing from my clients is the web experience. So how does a small local brand on Shopify, on Etsy, you know, compete with the big boys and provide a decent experience or a great experience? Because clearly all three of you are doing that.
I guess I'll go. So I would say with just overall my the web experience, like I said, I started out with Shopify, but my business was still new and still not too familiar. You know, other people weren't familiar with it. I I also started with a third-party marketplace, which is Cratejoy, because my business is subscription model, and Cratejoy does a lot of marketing for you. So that kind of triggered just that start of me reaching other people further out. So I ended up not just locally, but selling Cater to Mom to different customers outside of Austin. So that kind of started big reach. Another thing with, I guess, with Shopify too is I set up email marketing. And before pandemic, I was going and doing expos. So I was also kind of doing the face-to-face interaction and building my email list. So on top of that too, I was reaching out to my email list weekly and sharing just experience and just giving them more information about the boxes and postpartum. So I think between that and using that third-party marketplace created that experience.
Excellent. Go ahead, Toni.
I don't necessarily feel like the small businesses need to compete with the user experience of the big brands. I don't feel like it needs to be bright and shiny and the latest, but it does need to work. It does need to get your customers from point A to point B. And just in our experience, I mean, that could be, whatever, something simple like a Shopify or like a WooCommerce on your website, but it needs to work. And you need, in order to see if it works, you need to test it a lot. And I can think back to when we first launched, you think, well, all I have to do is set up this, and this, in my, or have someone set it up in my WooCommerce or Shopify or whatever. And you start testing it and you see that, well, one thing, your sizes don't populate like they're supposed to, or the colors don't populate, or in our case, we didn't have enough bandwidth on our website. And when we announced that sales were open, our website just broke. So I feel like that user experience is extremely important, but in the beginning, just make sure everything works smoothly. And then, as you go along, maybe you could level up to something that maybe is a little prettier or a little more technically savvy.
Excellent. Yeah, I think one of the things that's so important, and it's, we always have to think like our customers, right? We can't think like an entrepreneur. We have to think what our customers want. And amazingly enough, I'm always amazed at how customers think that if your website doesn't work, you can't make a burger, right? If your website doesn't work, your jewelry's not any good. So it is a linchpin to the quality or the experience you give. But you said a couple of very interesting things, both of you. First of all, the email. Really super important, because email, which I shock all of my 20-year-old students at the University of Texas with, is the most effective digital marketing on the planet, which most people think it's social or something else. So thank you for mentioning that, Marsha. And then Toni, you had mentioned a couple of things about testing, and that brings me in making sure everything works. So how does mobile focus or fit into all of this stuff?
Mobile is, in my mind, is extremely important. I mean, we look at our data on Google Analytics and also through YouTube and see that the majority of our viewers are viewing from their mobile phone or, an iPad. So definitely testing to make sure that works and make sure everything looks right. I mean, if you can't see the product, and that may play even into how you photograph your products, if you're in fact selling a product, because it needs to be visible and clearly visible on a mobile. So you may need to zoom in a little bit more. You may need to use some filtering that makes it stand out a little bit more.
Jane, Marsha, anything to add, or are you good?
My main website, Taste of Koko, is very photo heavy, and I do shoot with a Sony A7R II. So these photos are massive, like 7,000 pixels. So what I do with every single photo that's uploaded to the blog post, so I can not slow down my site speed, is every photo that's uploaded into WordPress, which is what I use for Taste of Koko. My e-commerce is on Shopify, but on WordPress, I decrease every photo down to 1,000 pixels, which is why when you load my website, it loads as fast as it does, even with as much content that's on it. And that's because I reduced my photo size. So I think that's maybe another thing that people should also keep in mind when you are building your website, especially if you do have a professional photographer that shoots product images for you, is to either resize them down before you upload them, or you can also download, if you're on WordPress, you can download different plugins that will decrease your photo sizes for you automatically and increase your site speed.
Excellent. Okay. The other thing that kind of just came up from that is I've seen numerous statistics that say, you know, online you have about no more than 5 seconds, which Jane just mentioned, to get somebody's attention. So what can a small business do to get somebody's attention and capture them to make them buy or get them to buy and not just have them bounce?
I think I see this a lot, not just on people's websites, but I think it's your social following or the way you display yourself on social is so important. And I don't do any consulting for brands, but naturally because of my presence here in town, I get a lot of small businesses who do ask me like, hey, can you give me feedback on this? Or like I get reached out every single day by small business. And for me, because I do only have the attention span about 5 seconds or 10 seconds because I need to get through the next 100 emails, is even when people introduce themselves, I'm like, link to your website in your email. Don't make me look for you because you're asking me for a favor. Like make it as easy for me so I know exactly what you do, what you're asking for in 5 seconds, and I can decide whether or not I can help you. That's not going to take a lot of my time. And I think I also relate this to social accounts, especially for Instagram, is Instagram going to bring you direct sales? No, but I think that Instagram might help you close the sale because if someone's on your website, they're not familiar with your brand or your product, chances are they're going to click on your Instagram page so they can see what you've been up to the most recent, maybe what products you're working on, and that might help you close your sale. But there's nothing more frustrating than a very confusing Instagram page where you can't figure out like, okay, what is this business actually selling? Are they selling gluten-free cookies? Are they, are they making like homemade pottery? Like, is this online only? Are they available at different stores in Austin? And so I think being as crystal clear as you can, and also more importantly, making sure that you have your email listed in your Instagram page, or if you're available by the phone, like put that in there too, so your customer can reach you directly. I don't use an email list. I don't know, it's just something that I decided early on that I didn't want to do. But what I do have is I have a private texting number that people can text me for restaurant recommendations. And that's so I can get back to them ideally within the hour. Sometimes I'm not as good as checking the texts that come through this number. But for me, that's like closing my loop with like quote unquote my customer, which is, someone that follows me and wants restaurant recommendations.
Excellent. Marsha, you were going to say something, I think.
I think for my business with Cater to Mom, our biggest I think interaction or just with our Instagram following was we connected with micro influencers, and those were just moms that were getting pregnant or getting close to having their babies that we looked at like their following and just how their interactions are with their followers. And we reached out to them and we sent out several like comp boxes to different moms, and that immediately attracted attention to Cater to Mom because others were saying, hey, this is she's received a box, and they're showing the content and immediately they're sharing it in their stories, and that immediately attracted people to our website.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about that. So all of your brands are, well known and beloved. So how do you integrate customers and social proof and testimonials into what you do? Because we know that's such a big thing because we're all looking for something that everybody else likes or loves.
I believe in letting your customers speak for you. And whether, I guess I'm thinking we mostly do this on social media, maybe on Instagram, but it could be done on your website, it could be done in Facebook. But when you get those first few sales and people love your product, and encourage them, what we did was put in for the physical product is we put a card like a thank you card in each package, and encouraged the recipient to post on Instagram and tag us. And people love doing that. I mean, they may not have as much of a following. They may want to have the chance of being reposted by your brand. So we encourage them either verbally or on our website or however to, post wearing the product or, eating the product or using the product, and then we'll get a chance to repost you, because people, there's one thing to constantly be out there kind of talking about yourself, but when you can get other people to talk about you, I think that garners the most interest and it feels authentic, and people feel like, here's a user who looks like me or who has the same needs that I do, and they like this product. So perhaps I'll like it too.
Excellent. Marsha, Jane, anything to add?
So when I launched my book, I had a goal of selling one book because I was thinking, oh, it's really hard to sell a product because 90% of my business is doing ads for major brands like Target, and IKEA, and Jameson. So when I launched my book, I think the most thing that I didn't expect was when I started doing wholesale in stores. So this is not really e-commerce anymore, because I did want to focus just on e-commerce through Amazon, was because it was just faster and easier. But I had all the local coffee shops and local stores reach out to me and say, like, can we please sell your book? Can we please sell your book? What is your wholesale pricing? And I tried really hard to hold off on that because I was like, I don't have time to do drops. But anyway, when I did launch into stores throughout Austin, what I didn't expect was how excited people were to see my book being everywhere. Like, you would go to Medici, then you go to Merritt, you go to the airport, you go to A-Town, you go to Noah Marion, and the yellow book, the bright yellow book, is just sitting there on the counter. And what happened is people would take pictures with it, post it on social, post it on IG stories, because they knew that I was very likely to reshare it onto my much bigger social following. And so it was kind of like a viral effect of everyone was basically helping me sell my book for me. And I just saw Jackie commented in the chat right now and said, my realtor gave me your book. Yes, like, my book has also been very popular for all the realties in Austin because it's such a great welcome gift for anyone that's new to town, because we all hate that question, like, oh, where should I eat? I live in East Austin. What are some coffee shops that are in the neighborhood? And so it's been very interesting for me, since I've always been such a digital brand, to then launch physical product. But the physical product has been very much well loved, but also promoted by like anyone that has bought it. And people usually buy it, not just one unit, they'll usually buy like 5 because they'll want to give it to their friends or people who are visiting.
Excellent. Before we get into the more, hardcore stuff like credit cards and shipping and all of that stuff and selling non-standard products, we've talked about, and clearly we have influencers here. How does a small brand go about reaching out to an influencer? I think that so many small businesses just think they just say, hey, I'm here, and then there's magic that happens somehow. But clearly you've reached out to them. We have them here on the panel. So if you could give our guests some insights on that, I think that'd be wonderful.
So, for our brand, I get reached out to a lot every single day. And I wish I could write a manual on how to reach out, whether it's a big influencer or a micro influencer.
Toni, you can. I think we'll all sell your book at that point in time for you, just like Jane
I wish
said.
I had time. There are just some very important basic things. As Jane just said, let me know what it is you do and what you're selling. Just don't reach out to me and say, hey, can I partner with you? I've got a product I think you'd like. What is that product? Where's your website? Send me something. Always, never send what do you call them? Bulk emails anymore. Don't ever do that. I can't believe people are still doing that. Or even a fill in the blank where they say, hi, and they put your first name and middle name. Take some time to have looked at the platforms, hopefully you're looking at that this influencer would be a really good match. Their audience would be a good match for my product. So therefore, that's why I'm reaching out. Tell them that. Explain to them why you think their audience would be a good match. Tell them exactly what it is you're selling. Maybe a concept that you have in mind that you've thought of that they might be able to partner with you on. Make it as personal as you can, no matter who you're reaching out to. Follow up once, maybe twice. Don't keep spamming them. You got to do your research first. You just can't, spend a few hours looking at influencers on Instagram or wherever you're looking and say, oh, let me, this person has this many followers, this person has that many followers. Because number one, it's not even based on followers. It's what kind of audience they have and what kind of engagement do they have with their audience. So there's a little bit of pre-work that needs to go on. And then, don't reach out to hundreds at a time. Reach out to a handful, make those connections, maybe even look at giving them a sample of your product without any obligation. Because what will happen, I'll tell you this, even with the larger influencers, if you have a product that appeals, that is going to appeal to them and appeal to their audience, they'll probably talk about it for free. And you've just gotten that very valuable, piece of your marketing plan done for free. But, reach out to them, see if they'd be open to it, offer to send them something, and just go from there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Marsha, Jane, anything to add?
I totally agree with Toni. It's definitely doing your research, and then just looking at influencers, seeing the type of engagement they have with the followers. Initially, when we started, we sent out we sent out an email, and I think too, just definitely being able to connect with them on some level and not just trying to sell the product. I did, like I said, I sent out comp boxes. Was no obligation either. It was just, hey, I see that you're getting ready to have a baby. I would love to send you a box. And they were like, great. And next thing you know, they were sharing the box on their stories. I think one of the biggest moves for us, we sent a box to just a Beachbody distributor, and she the box so much she shared it, and it increased our following, our engagement, and people were going to our website just off hers. And then she ended up having a second baby and 2 years later and asked for another box. So it's kind of like one of those things that it just initially just doing, like Toni said, and connecting with them and just overall being authentic to them, not just trying to sell them something immediately.
Excellent.
Two things from both Toni and Marsha. So I love what Toni said about the whole obligation thing. I get probably 20 requests a day from small local businesses, and I wish I had all the time to support every single request that I have, but it's just not possible. Like, I have to, I'm also a small business, and I have to run revenue, so then I can continue supporting as many small businesses as I can. But I think when Toni said about obligations, like, it's very off-putting when I get DMs or emails from a small local business that I would have loved to support, but they, the general thing is like, hey, can I drop off some cookies to you? And will you write a blog post, do all this photography, do an IG post, do IG stories? Like, no, that's the value of $5. So you just valued me for $5 for an 8-hour project. And so that's like an immediate no. And I think a lot of those requests, I actually don't respond anymore, because I don't want to have to argue with you on like the explanation of why this would not work. So I think this is actually a great way for me to explain to everyone on this phone is like, I'm human. I have things that I need to do every day. And so the easiest way that you can make my life easier if you are pitching me is to write me an email. I don't prefer DMs. I know someone just asked that in the chat box, because my DMs are flooded. I'm missing DMs at this point because I have like 100 that are left unread because I don't have time to go through them. Is tell me exactly what you do. Do you bake cookies? Do you make pottery? Do you sell plants? I love plants. So anyone that wants to drop off a plant to me, I will always take all the plants. but tell me what you're looking for. And I think it's also easier when you're like, hey, can I just drop something off to you? No obligations, because chances are it might be the greatest thing or something that I absolutely love, like Toni said, and I might end up covering it for free. But if you're super pushy to me in the very beginning, I'm just like, no. And I would have missed out on the next greatest, biggest thing. And then the other thing that I want to touch on that Marsha said is about like kid stuff and baby stuff. And it's like understanding who you're pitching to. And for me, it's super frustrating. I'm 31, I'm not married, I don't have kids, but I get so many children and baby requests. Like actually 2 days ago, some lady came up to me with a baby company idea. And I was like, look, I don't have kids. Like, this is just not an authentic fit. I mean, who's going to play with the toys? I'm not going to play with the toys. And it was also even more like disheartening when she's like, well, it's probably time. And I was like, okay, that's probably not okay for what you said. But it's like, you know, that's pushy. And for me, like, that's just an absolute no. And it just doesn't make sense to my lifestyle. And so I get the same thing with like, oh, will you do an engagement shoot? Do you want to do like a wedding shoot? I'm like, no, it doesn't make any sense to my lifestyle. So be really conscientious of that when you reach out to either it's a member of media, influencer, blogger, whoever you're trying to like pitch to, and be conscientious of what life cycle they're in or maybe what they're going through.
Excellent. And then you both brought up some form of payment to influencers. So is there a guideline? Is there a thought of what that looks like when it's right, when it's not right?
That's deep.
All right. Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful panel. I appreciate your time. I think that's where we're going to leave it today. Oh, no, go ahead, Toni.
Yeah, I think there is. I did somewhere online about, you know, probably a couple of years ago, a lot of brands were paying influencers based on the number of followers, which was really not very smart, but they did it. You know, if you have a lot of followers, we definitely will pay you more. And now they're getting a little bit more savvy. They can use, there's an app called Social Blue Book that can be used for both influencers and for brands to see, you know, what should you be paying this particular influencer. I think there was a free version, it may be paid now, but it's basically based on their reach. You know, how many people can they reach? Are they likely to reach with a post or a video or a blog post or whatever? And that gives you kind of a guideline to go on. It's all over the place. It could be as little as free up to $100,000 and more. So that's a big range. There is absolutely nothing wrong with working with micro influencers. In fact, I understand that a brand could possibly reach more of their target audience by working with a micro influencer because they tend to have very tight knit, close knit, engaged audiences. And, you know, it's going to be easier for if they post about your product and a potential customer asks them a question about it, it's going to be easier for them to see that comment and respond to it. So yeah, price paying, you know, I believe small businesses try the free route first and then look at paying, you know, depending on, you know, what your desired return on investment is.
Excellent.
There's something I also want to mention. I did a big fundraising when we had a winter storm, when a lot of us lost power, and a lot of us did not have access to water. And I launched the Awesome Winter Storm Relief Fund. I jumped on stories and said, hey guys, I know a lot of us are hurting, but there's a lot of other people hurting. I'm starting this fund with $500. Will you join me? In about a week and a half, we raised $160,000 and we served 30,000 meals to all the major hospitals, EMS, warming centers, everything. But I want to mention a local business that, and a lot of local businesses reached out to me at the time, and I was completely flooded with requests. I was even dropping off meals to hospitals, and a lot of people were asking like, hey, can I bake cookie? Can I bake cheesecakes? Like, what can I do to help out? And there was a local watercoloring artist. Her name was Coloring ATX. She was one of the DMs that I had happened to respond to. And she's like, hey, Jane, I want to help. How can I help you? Like, maybe I could do a watercoloring print. And at that time I was like, sure, if you want to do that, like, just feel free to donate the money to GoFundMe. And a couple of weeks later, the team that worked with me on this fund was like, hey, somebody made an $8,000 donation. She's like a watercolor artist. And sure, I went and looked, and this girl painted a watercoloring picture of downtown Austin, and raised $8,000 through her watercolor print and sold them and donated 100% of that to my GoFundMe. And just in that instance, I've opened my book up to her. Like, I was like, what do you want to do? You want to go on Amazon? You want to go wholesale? Who do you need to get connected to? Because I think like in situations like that, she wasn't asking for anything. She was like, how can I help you? How can I help the city? And things like that just go so far. And the reason why I opened up my book up to her was like, I know how hard it is to start your own business, but I love the fact that she like wasn't pushy. She's like, hey, I'm going to do my thing. And here you go. I donated, like, no questions asked. I'm not asking anything from you. And so I think when people are reaching out wanting like, hey, can you promote my thing? Can you promote my thing? It's always like, well, what, I want you to do something for me. And I think so many local fellow business owners don't think about like, but what am I doing for her? Right? Because I can't help everyone because I'm helping everyone, I'm not helping anyone.
Yeah, excellent. And I always, strongly believe, and for 20 years of doing influencer marketing and social media marketing, you've got to give first before you can ask or even expect to get. So really super important. So we talked about the cost, but hey, a lot of the people on here, they might sell physical products. What if you sell services? What if you sell something it's intangible? How does e-commerce work in that world? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, I do sell something that is a service, intangible, e-commerce. My digital course is online. There's so many platforms that you can work with, especially for digital products. I mean, for tangible products too, that it's mostly done for you. Maybe not the marketing, but to set up. The confusing part for me was, how do I I can get some customers, and how do I get them to pay for my product and have access to my digital product? Whether that's coaching, whether that's a course. And I feel like the platforms handle all of that for you and make it super seamless. For my course, I use a platform called Teachable, but there's half a dozen other ones out there, Kajabi, that you pay them a monthly fee. Yes, it's not free. No, it's not free, but you pay them a monthly fee, and they pretty much set everything up for you. And even as far as like one of the rules that have changed this year with digital products is the sales tax thing. And I thought that was going to be just a big headache, because I've dealt with sales tax before through e-commerce and having to figure that part out and send the money in and get the sales tax forms filed. But it turns out that this platform actually takes care of all of that for you. They were just making you aware that, hey, we're going to be charging sales tax and we're going to be passing this on to the state. But you can use a platform like WooCommerce, or I'm not sure if Shopify handles it, but there are a lot. I guess what I want to say is there are a lot of platforms out there that just do the done for you for digital, and I would definitely look into those and research them, because it makes it a whole lot easier. That's one thing that you don't have to worry about if all of that is being handled. Your payments to you, refunds. I had to deal with refunds and chargebacks. Someone had asked a question about a chargeback. All of that's handled through the platform that I use.
And while we're on that topic, a couple of questions came in about shipping and credit card payments and all of that stuff, all the logistics of being online. Any thoughts on how to think about that, structure it, handle it? Toni, you gave some excellent ones on the tax. I love that.
I think it really all depends on what exactly you're shipping. Currently with us, we utilize USPS. And we integrate with a company called Hardship which offers us rate. But we're getting bigger now, so we're actually interviewing with fulfillment centers too, to where the boxes and the products and stuff will go to a fulfillment center for them to handle the shipping for us. For our international shipping, we use a company called InExpress, which kind of works with DHL and FedEx to ship our international stuff. And they kind of know, they handle that the parts of like the stuff that can go in the boxes and the stuff that can't. So I love that aspect of it, because there's certain things that you can't ship overseas. So we utilize that company for our international shipments.
Okay. I think we have just a couple more minutes, and then we'll probably open up for questions here. We will open up for questions. But you guys have all done an amazing job of engaging your audiences, and we talked a little bit on social. But how can a small brand gain trust and show up and engage people from basically starting at nothing?
I think initially sharing your story, connecting with your audience, and just that just being authentic and personal. A lot of people, just with my business, kind of know my own personal story, just my journey with the different with my challenges with postpartum. So I think that connected and resonated with so many of the followers that I have now, is just that it was something that they experienced as well. So that's kind of initially how I started. It was just that overall connection with people.
Excellent. Toni, we're going to have something.
I think that understanding what most small businesses need to understand about engaging on social media, or just showing up on social media, is that it is social. It is a back and forth. It is not just posting about yourself, and especially what you want to sell at the moment, although that's a big part of it. Telling your story, storytelling is hugely important. And knowing that there is a certain amount of frequency that's going to be required of you to be seen by your audience. Just because you have, 50,000 followers on Instagram doesn't mean that 50,000 followers are going to see every single thing that you post. And I think most small businesses that haven't been in the social media space don't understand that. They don't understand how much frequency is going to be required of them. I read something recently that said that 50%, and this was last year, so maybe it's changed in the pandemic, 50% of small businesses post like once a week, once a week. Or I think it was once a month, but it wasn't very frequent. And understanding that, it's got to be way more than that. How do you do that and run your business at the same time? Planning, using tools that help automate, help maybe even hiring a social media assistant to take care of that posting and engagement with you. But it's going to require frequency. It's going to require a lot of checking in and engaging, or having someone check in and engage. The worst thing that can happen is that be on social media, you've got a product that people are interested in, and they're asking you about it, and you don't even respond, because I understand you're busy over here shipping or doing whatever else you have to do, but it's going to require a lot of time and frequency and back and forth with your audience.
Excellent. All right. A couple questions came in that are fairly interesting. So how do we make big branding decisions like the name of the business, themes, colors, all of that stuff when we're just getting started out with e-commerce, whether we have our own site or on Shopify or anywhere else? Anyone? I would say go look at your competitors. Go look at what other people are doing. I always tell people, never start with a blank piece of paper. Somewhere out in the world, somebody's trying to do what you're doing. Learn from them first. All right, let's see. A couple other questions, and if you have questions, please put them in chat. You guys had all mentioned various tools, and people seem very, very interested in the tools you use. So any thoughts on the tools to kind of make e-commerce easier for everybody?
I definitely recommend setting up your Google Analytics because that's going to give you all the data you need to see just where you're at in your e-commerce business, what your customers are looking at, just where your customers are coming from. That was kind of like the first thing I did when I started my website, is making sure that was set up. I highly recommend definitely doing that.
Great. Toni, Jane?
I agree with the Google Analytics, and also Marsha, I didn't catch the name of the shipping company you used. What was that again?
Express.
Yeah,
International.
yeah, that's great too. We used one called Shipping Easy. That was really helpful for us. That was a tool that I liked to just integrate with USPS, and I think it even gave us a bit of a discount because we were bulk shipping, and I really like that one for e-commerce.
Right. And Shopify is great for overall integration. It integrates with quite a few different companies and just CRM. So that's why I love using Shopify, because it integrates well with different tools.
Jane, anything to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, any closing remarks for everybody before we kind of just open up questions and see if anybody else has anything else? We'll go in reverse order. Jane, I'll start with you this time since you were last first time.
Closing remarks. I think, again, because I'm sitting in the influencer seat of, small businesses probably wanting to pitch me, is kind of wrapping up what I said earlier, is send an email, be very clear and concise of what you do and what you're wanting, be conscientious of what you want. Is it a post, is it a blog post? Understand if I'm not available to do those things, because maybe it just doesn't make sense, whether if you're a product or service that I don't need. But also know that, creating a blog post, doing photography, doing a social post, like there are a lot of costs behind that, and it takes a lot of time. And understand, like, hey, if I'm like, hey, sorry, I'm just not interested, be respectful of that. Or maybe if you are very aware of whatever activations I'm working on, like when I did the winter storm, then a lot of small businesses all jumped in and were like, okay, we know she's super busy, we're gonna make her life easier, we're gonna help fundraise on the side and then donate to her fund. So just kind of keep those in mind.
Great. Marsha?
I would say just initially starting out just with my e-commerce business, don't expect it to be an overnight success. It takes time, and like we had discussed previously, just being socially active on your with Instagram, Facebook, connecting with people, it takes time. And that's one thing I always tell people, even when you're starting a business, definitely you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Because just the entrepreneur life you have your ups and downs, definitely. So I would say definitely with starting an e-commerce, there's some days things are great, and some days that you're constantly refining. Definitely, I look to even my website. I look at things that I can change, and there's so many resources here in Austin. So definitely tap into those resources, because there's so many things that you learn about with e-commerce, that even just being in business almost 3 years now, that I didn't know that I go back and refine with my website and just overall with business ethics.
Excellent. Toni?
I want to say, if you're new to e-commerce, if your small business is new to e-commerce, it's easy to get overwhelmed because there's so many moving pieces you need to be concerned with. But I would just say, take it one step at a time. Don't rush your launch. It's not a race. I know sometimes you have a deadline in place, and you can end up just getting really, really stressed out. Just take it one step at a time. Make sure all your T's are crossed, your I's are dotted, as far as how am I going to market this? How am I going to accept payments? How am I going to ship if it's a tangible product? Just work through everything, plan it, and know that you may need to delegate to someone, either someone in your company or hire a teenager maybe to help with the social media, and just take it slow. When things take off, you'll take off a little bit more too.
That's excellent. The one I would add is you've got to understand the questions your customers ask. When people go to your site, when people go to your store, they have questions. If they don't get their questions answered, they're going to bounce. And so you've got to think like a customer and make sure they have enough information. It's so important. I can't believe so many websites I go to and the basic questions aren't answered, like price, like what comes with this, like what's in this, what works with it, what doesn't, things like that. People need that kind of stuff. If you have questions, put them in chat. You can raise your hand. I think we have a few more minutes to ask our wonderful panel a few things. So if you do have anything, please type it in there. But before we do that, I just want to thank you guys. You guys are amazing. You've done amazing things. And I think that you sharing your time and resources with us here has just been really, really illuminating. So thank you all. All right. Any other questions? Raise your hand or chat.
I saw a question in the chat about apps for scheduling. I use Planoly. It's an Instagram and Pinterest scheduler. I've used it for about 4 years now. That's how I plan my feed and make it like cohesive and all the colors all blend together. So there's a couple, there's also Later, but I have used Planoly and I love it. I use it primarily on desktop. So I edit my photos in Photoshop, then I will upload stuff to Dropbox, and then I will drag and drop into the Planoly dashboard on the web app, and then it will also auto post to Instagram. So it's great.
Excellent. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions coming in, so thank you all again. You have been absolutely amazing. And yes, we do have a panel of amazing women, so that is really good because that's something we need more of. So this is awesome. I guess we'll stick around for a little bit if you have some questions, but thank you all. And again, to many of you, thank you, the City of Austin, for making these resources available to us. Take care,
This is
everyone.
Joy Miller with the Small Business Program. Jackie had to jump off to attend to something else, but I wanted to say again, as Chris said, thank you so much for being interested in what we've done this week. This panel has been absolutely the dream team. Appreciate you all so much. I was kind of cheering, kind of doing this rah-rah as it was going on. So thank you so much for sharing your information. We just launched an evaluation poll that'll take you about 15 seconds to complete. So please, all of you who are on the call, please take the poll. We appreciate your being here. And I will tell you, there are a couple more things coming up this afternoon. There's actually one thing that my department, the Economic Development Department, is doing at 2 o'clock, and it's all about the programs that we do to help small businesses. And there are several being talked about today, next Friday, and the following Friday. So there's a lot that we do. You might want to look on Eventbrite or our website and sign up for that. So thank you again. Please take the poll. Chris, thank you for being a great host as always.
Oh, thank you, Joy. I did nothing. It was these three amazing women who did all the work, so they deserve all the credit.
I know, it's so great that we had all these women to be able to do this.
All right, well, everybody be safe. I'll hang around a little bit. Toni, Marsha, Jane, if you want to, you're certainly welcome to. Let's see what comes in, but good luck, everybody.